Dear student, I, Dr. Shefali Jain, Assistant Professor, Tirthankar Mahavir University. Today we discuss about methods of economics. There are two methods of reasoning in theoretical economics. They are the deductive methods and inductive method. Deductive method. It is a method of economics investigation or economics analysis. It is also known as the analytical abstract theory method or the hypothetical method. In this method, a person is required to assume the information and then follow the phase of logical reasoning to arrive at a concrete result or conclusion. By including some assumption and experiments, a theory is built in this method. It means deductive reasoning is a logical approach where you progress from general idea to specific conclusion. It is often contrasted with inductive reasoning, where you start with specific observation and from general conclusion. Deductive reasoning is also called deductive logic or top-down reasoning. From instinct, it is a common fact that businessmen strive for maximum profits. Therefore, assumptions such as businessmen buying materials as a cheaper cost and cutting labor cost and are added to build an economic theory that offers solution to qualitative and labor related issues. Hence, the common rule to remember in the case of deductive method is to move from general fact to particular. It means in the deductive method एक जर्नल जो फैक्ट होता है उससे हम पर्टिकुलर जो बात यूनिवर्सल है उसको पर्टिकुलर व्यक्ति पर फॉलो करके देखते हैं. मोर एवर इन द डिडक्टिव मेथड simple fact help in creating complex hypothesis. In this method we also create a hypothesis. Therefore, three stage of phases are recognized in the deductive method. In this method we also adopt three phases. First of all is observation. Second, logical reasoning. Third, experimentations, instance and testing through observation. Making the hypothesis in an important components of the deductive methods of the economics analysis. Deductive methods also involve four steps: selecting the problem, the formulations of the assumptions based on which the problem is to be explored, the formulation of hypothesis through the process of logical reasoning, whereby inference are drawn or verifying the hypothesis. Just it means the deductive method involves four steps. One by one, we also first of all selected the problem. The problem which an investigator selected for inquiry must be stated clearly. It may be very wide like poverty, unemployment, inflation, etc. or narrow relating to an industry. The narrower the problems, the better it could be to conduct the inquiry. Second, formulating assumption. Second step is a formulating assumption. The next step in deduction is the framing of assumption, which are the basic of hypothesis. To be fulfilled for inquiry, the assumption must be general. In any economic inquiry, more than one set of the assumption should be made in terms of which a hypothesis may be formulated. And next, जो है हमारी third step the formulation of hypothesis through the process of logical reasoning whereby inference are drawn. The next step is to formulate a hypothesis on the basis of logical reasoning whereby conclusions are drawn from the propositions. This is done in two ways. First, through logical deduction, if and because relationship, and next is with this is testing the next step is verifying the hypothesis. The final step in the deductive method is to test and verify the hypothesis. For this purpose, economists now use statistical and econometric methods. Verification consists in confirming whether the hypothesis is in agreement with facts. A hypothesis is true or not can be verified by observation and experiment. Since economics is concerned with human behavior, there are problems in making observations and testing a hypothesis. For example, the hypothesis that firms always attend to maximize profits rest upon the observation that some firms do behave in this way. So the hypothesis stand verified. I think you have understood the four steps of the deductive method. Now we are also study about the merits the deductive methods. First of all, simple and convenient. And this method is observation based and it fairly easy to practice. For example, in the law of diminishing marginal utility, after the increase in consumption, the consumer reaches the point of satiety and the utility of the good being to diminish. It means it is the method of intellectual experiments according to Boulding. Since the actual world is very complicated, what we do is to is also going in our mind. Economic system which are simple than the reality, but more easy to grasp. We can work out the relationship in these simplified system. And its methods is also simple because it is analytical. It involves abstractions and simplifies a complex problem by dividing it into components parts. Next is have removes the needs for experimentation. Experiments are vital in subjects like chemistry and physics, but not mandatory in the case of economics. The deductive method is an alternative to experiments as far as economics as a subject or is concerned. It means it is also a powerful method to analysis for detecting conclusion from certain factors as pointed out the method of deduction is incomparable when conducted under proper checks. The most powerful instrument of discovery ever wielded by the human intelligence. The use of statistical, mathematics, and econometric in deduction brings exactness and clarity in economics analysis. The mathematically trained economics is able to detect inference in a short time and make it generalization theories. Next है accurate result. Deductive method include logical reasoning on the part of the economist or analyst, hence logical thinking. Increase imagination sets a high standard. It means the use of deductive methods for economists in a science like political economic where experiment is practically impossible, abstractions and analysis afford the only means of escape from those other influence which complicate the problem so much. And the it is also give the accurate result. The deductive method has to drawing the inferences which are of universal validity because they are based on general principles such as the law of diminishing returns. But with the merits of the deductive methods, there are some demerits in the deductive methods, जैसे assumptions based. Assumptions have a higher chance of going wrong and result in invalid solution. This can be lead to a serious economic crisis if done inappropriately. Means every hypothesis is based on a set of assumptions. When a hypothesis is tested, assumptions are indirectly tested by the comparing their implications with fact. But when facts refute the theory based on the tested hypothesis. The assumptions are also indirectly refuted. So, deduction depends upon the nature of assumption. If they are unrealistic in this method, economists use various assumptions, but other things seldom remain the same, which tend to refute theories. Next, imaginative. There is a great chance of the deductive method being far from the reality since it works based on imagination. Real life problems cannot be solved by imaginative or uh, utopic solution. It means non. It is not universal applicable. Often, the conclusion derived from the deductive reasoning are not applicable universally because the premises from which they are deduced may not hold good at all time and places. For instance, the classics assumed in their reasoning that particular condition prevailing in England of their time were valid universally. This suppositions was wrong. So Professor Lerner also asks, therefore, points out that the detection method is simple armchair analysis, which cannot be regarded as universal, and its verification or theories, generalizations, and law in economics is based on observation, and right observation depend upon data, which must be correct or adequate. If a hypothesis is a detects from wrong or inadequate data, the theory will be correspond with the fact and will be repeated. For instance, the generalizations of the classes were based on inadequate data and their theories were refuted. So it is the deductive method is also highly abstract and requires great skill and drawing inference for varying parameters due to complexity of the certain economics problem. It becomes difficult to apply this method even at hands of an expert researcher. And this letter of analysis based on assumption that economics conditions remain constant, but economics conditions are continuously changing. Thus, this is a static method which fails to make correct analysis. And the chief defect of the deductive method lies in the fact that those who follow this method may be observed in the framing of the intellectual toys and real world. It is not related to the real world, may be forgotten in the intellectual gymnastics and mathematical statement. I think you have to properly understood what is deductive method, what is its merits and demerits and staffs. Now we discuss about what is inductive method. In the inductive method, analyst and theorist progress from particular practical outlook of to a scientific problem in order to shorten the gap between theoretical knowledge and practical applications. The induction method is carried out in two forms by statics and experimentations. This method is classically associated with the statistical forms of investigation. It involves a lot numbers, quantities, and formal terms. Uh, Induction is the process, it means induction is the process of reasoning from a part to whole, from particulars to general, or from the individual to the universal. It's Wickens describe it as a ascending process in which facts are collected. First of all, facts are collected, arranged, and then general conclusions are drawn. The inductive method are employed in economics by the German historical school, which sought to develop economics fully from historical research. The historical or inductive method expected the economics to be primarily as economic historians who should first collect material, draw generalizations, and verify the conclusion by applying them to subsequent events. For this, it uses statistical methods. Now, the inductive methods involve following steps. First of all, the problem. In order to arrive at a generalizations concerning an economic phenomena, the problem should be properly selected and clearly stated. Next, data. The second step is a collection, iterative classification, and analysis of data by using appropriate statistical techniques. Next is her observation. Data is used to make observation about particular facts concerning the problem. Next are generalizations. On the basis of observation, generalization is logically derived, which establishes a general truth from particular facts. Thus, induction is process in which we arrive at a generalization on the basis of particular observed facts. The best example of inductive reasoning is in economics is the formulation of generalization of diminishing returns. When Scottish farmers found that in the cultivations of his field an increase in the amount of labor and capital spent on it was bringing in less than proportionate returns years after years, and economists observe such an instant in case of a number of other forms, and then he arrived at generalization that is known as the law of diminishing returns. I think you have properly understood what is inductive methods. Now we discuss about the merits of the inductive methods. It is very practical, applicable method, and it is simply descriptive. It means it is also related to realistic because it is based on fact and explain them as they actually are. It is concrete and synthetic because it deals with the subject as a whole and does not divide it into components, parts, and component parts and artificially. Uh, and it is the next it is totally verifiable since it deals with quantities. It means inductive induction has a future uh, inquiries by discovering and providing general principles. Induction has future investigations, and it is depend on the quantities. Uh, it also verify what is the quantities. Once a generalization is established, it becomes the starting point of the future inquiries, and inductive method makes use of the statistical method. This has made a significant improvement in the application of induction for analyzing economic problems of wide range. In particular, the collection of data by government and private agencies or macro variables like national income, general prices, consumption, saving, total employment, etc., has increased the value of this method and helped governments to formulate economic policies and removal of poverty, inequality, or unemployment problems also. And next, the laws and theories under inductive method may not be universal but are condition specific, and it means inductive method is also dynamic. In this changing economic phenomena can be analyzed on the basis of the experiments. The conclusion can be drawn and appropriate remedial measures can be taken. A generalization drawn under the inductive method is often historical, relative in economics, since it is drawn from a particular historical situation. It cannot be applied to all situations unless they are exactly similar. For instance, India and America differ in their factor. Therefore, it would be wrong to apply the industrial policy which was followed in America in the late in 19th century to present day India. This inductive method has the merits of the applying generalization only to related situation or phenomena. Now, I think you have to properly understood what is the inductive method, what's are its steps and merit. Now we discuss about the demerits of inductive method. Uh, if in the case of analysis or theories do not possess a balanced and stable judgment, then this method is unhelpful as they will be changed in insufficient data. It may induction released or statistical numbers for analysis that can be misused and misinterpreted when the assumptions which are required for their use are forgotten. And Bolding also point out that statistical information can only give us propositions whose truth is more or less probable. It can never give a certainty. So, the, it means statistical analysis differ from investigators to investigator, even for the same problem. As for instance, in case of national income account, the statistical techniques lack concreteness. And this next, the inductive method works on the basis of experiments. Experiments require materials and resources. It often difficult to gather and access the facts required for experiment. This is method depend on the experiment. So inductive method is not only time consuming but also costly. It involves detail and we have to needs many equipments to of collection, classification, analysis, interpretations of data on parts of the trained and expert investigators and analysts. And again, the use of statistical inductions cannot prove a hypothesis. It can only show that the hypothesis is not inconsistent with the known fact. In reality, collection of data is not is not unless it is related to hypothesis. And beside the statistical methods, the other method used in induction is of control experimentations. The method is extremely useful in the natural and physical science which deal with matter. But unlike the natural science, there is a little scope for experimentations in economics because economics deals with human behavior, which differ from the person to person and from place to place. Further, economics phenomena are very complex as they relate to the man who does not act rationally. Some of his actions are also bound by the legal and social institution of the society in which he lives. Thus, the scope for control experiments in induction economics is very little, as the absence of control experiment in economics renders the weeding out of the unsuccessful hypothesis show slow and difficult. And next, the inductive method is an incomplete method. So we can also say that inductive method is an incomplete method alone. It can be used if combined with the deductive method or deductive reasoning. Uh, uh, with the help of this chart, we can also find out the comparison of the deductive and inductive method. First, deductive method used by those those believing in classical theories. It is also used by the classical theories, and inductive method used by those who believes in new classical theories. The economists who believed in the new classical theory, it is used by them. Techniques, deductive method is abstract and inductive method is based on the practical. Next, analytic. Its others names also analytical, parity, and abstracts method. And inductive method is also called historicals, empiricals, and others names, and also knowns and the others names. Next. This methods in this method, facts are followed by logical reasoning, and in the inductive methods, practical scenario to the scientific techniques. In this matter, we firstly we do the practical, and we also use the scientific techniques. So uh, in the deductive methods, works under the social science model, while inductive method works under the science model. Next, deductive method is universal, because it goes general to particular, and inductive method is a situation specific, because it goes particular to journal. And confirmation of the making the deductive method is depend on the confirmation of the making the hypothesis, and inductive method is depend on the generalization result. Structure, high high structured methods. This method is the high structured method, because there are very steps, and uh, uh, very steps, and inductive method is a less structured. I think, hope you have to understood properly what is the deductive method and what is the inductive method. What are the steps of the deductive methods, and what are merits and demerits of the deductive methods, and what is the steps of the inductive method, what is the merits and demerits of the inductive method, and what are the comparison between deductive and inductive method. Hope you have to understood understood. Thank you, students. Thank